Hello, everyone. We're back with the clue. So, this is kind of where I'm at. After painting the face, I've done the hand, hair, and scarf. You can see I didn't really feel the need to show you hair because there's plenty of videos on me painting hair on figures. But yeah, I've done the hand. You can see kind of where the hand's at, where the face is at. I did the scarf and his cuffs. They're not perfect, but they're in. I've also blocked in the light on the jacket. It is not perfectly smooth right now, and that is totally fine. But I've drawn in the cast shadows, right? So we are going to paint some patterns, and a complicated one, but it looks complicated. It's not as complicated in practice as it seems. It's just small and a lot of dots, and I'll show you because I did a little practice section last night. So here's what we're gonna paint. The top is one attempt, right? So these top 4 rows or something, five rows. So this was my first attempt of trying one technique. Okay. And then these rows down here is me. So this is me doing it with lines. So horizontal lines. And these down here is me doing it with dots. Okay. If anyone knows the pattern, feel free to chime in. But I am going to do this over his entire jacket. Probably not on camera because I think you guys will get bored. You're close. It's Houndstooth. So yeah, it's called Houndstooth. It's a specific wool weaving pattern. Yeah, so I'm gonna do it this way, right? And a lot of times you'll see it in a two-tone. It'll be just black and white, but there's multiple. They can do it with more colors. So something about the 3-tone with what it's gonna end up being is a dark brown, a tan and white, air quote white, the white of this cream white of his jacket that I've blocked in the front. So it's basically a white, a neutral, and a dark. Okay. And in the end, hopefully his whole jacket will look like this. I'm also going to, this will all get redone. This was just me testing it for an hour last night to see which approach I liked the best. This will all get repainted over because I'd also, though I'm okay with the size right here, I think it might look better about maybe 70% this size. So I'd like to get a few more lines in. Okay. But yeah, I'll break down sort of how I lay out these kind of patterns, and then we will execute on the actual doing all the dots and stuff. Okay. Yes, I will be going even slightly smaller than that. It's not tiny enough. It's not fine enough. I want it smaller. More detail. One thing. So this, well, let me get some colors on the palette. Oh, the peepers will definitely be worn. So some black. some brown. Oops. A neutral kind of golden sort of color. Might be slightly too yellow. I might add some bit of another color to that. See in a second. I might want to like mix these 50-50. We'll try both and see what I think of the two, because I want to make sure that the values are right between the front and the back. Okay, or like the light and the shadow areas. The reason all this isn't blended is because the actual pattern itself is going to hide a lot of the blending, right? So as long as I shift values in sort of these like regions, it'll help a lot in blending the surface. Okay, and then bone white. And then if I need, I can add a white for some highlights, but the actual wool itself probably won't get too highlighted, but I might grab some like ivory or something at some point just to add a few squares of highlight. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this brown, and I've sort of blocked it in, right? But I want, so a little bit of brown, a little bit of black, something like this. I'm just going to outline the shape of the crease here. Not the crease, but like where the jacket gets stitched together. I want to make sure I have some lines separating these, because this is where the pattern's going to change, right? It'll change from going like this direction on this to this direction on the sleeve. There's also an unsculpted seam typically on the top of jackets. Here you tend, on like a wool coat, at the top of the shoulder, you tend to have a seam that runs probably about right here. So I'm just going to mark that. It's a less visible seam than the other one, but I want to make sure I know like where that line is. Okay. So on the front side, they have some direction to them, and then on the back side, because also like if you think about the fabric, right, this will get tapered in, right? So it's going to start to get cut off. Same over here. Like if it runs vertical, like it won't perfectly run into, if I go this direction, right, eventually it's going to hit somewhere over here, right? So it's going to start to look weird. So we have to cut in some way. And let me just double check. I'm pull up a picture of a houndstooth coat. Just to see how that shoulder sort of attaches. Yeah, so it runs vertical with the lapel, or like the front breast of it, and then it changes in the other direction. Just looking. But that actually would have been interesting, but no. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, let's Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. Thanks for the follow. And Beefas, thanks for following. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our dark brown. One other thing is, like, with this houndstooth, you tend to have women's and men's houndstooth. Women's houndstooth tends to be a bit smaller. So it will, or not smaller. Men's tends to be a bit smaller. Women's patterns tend to be like more exaggerated. They're larger, like the pattern itself is larger. So we're doing more a men's style, so it'll be, I want to do it tinier. Okay, so I'm going to start at the shoulder here, and I want to go this way, so it is going to run a bit along the breast, right? So we're going to have it come down like this, and we're just going to draw a line sort of in the center here to get the like initial position of this one. Okay, and then we will use this as a reference point for all of our other lines. Okay, so we want to run it vertically. Like so. And I want a specific thickness to this line, which I can clean up with the white, but I want to be a little thinner than the one on the back side if I want these to be tighter, right? Okay, and then the next is to take these two, right? So we're going to mix these two together. I'm going to try just this one, sort of more of the slightly darker one. You can see that basically looks like black on his shoulder. So now I want to make another line next to this one and leave the white to be about the same thickness as the line that I drew initially. Okay. And I'll fix that one down there later, but I just want to get it across his chest first. Now I can do it on the other side. So basically, if you wanted to make like a pinstripe jacket, this would be the process to do a pinstripe, right? We're essentially going to paint a pinstripe, and then we're going to paint a sort of like tight plaid. Right. So if you followed along with how to do the plaid before, then you should be able to follow along with how to get, you should be able to do these like initial steps. Okay. Now I'm going to take come back to the brown. Well, I try and be, thanks Sebastian, I try and be, break it down to sort of the simplest concepts. Well, and a lot of times with these like patterns and stuff, they look like way more complicated than they are. But if you can like break a pattern down into its components, it's often a lot easier. Same thing when we kind of did the Mantis Warriors like knee pad. Any of these freehands, right? You sort of break it down into its most simple forms. So if you can begin to recognize, like, you remove the detail from the pattern, the complexity, and you kind of start to see like the checkerboard nature of it, and then it becomes much more approachable to paint these sorts of things. Where when you see it finished, right, just in its finished state, it can look like super complex. Same with plaid and like tartans and stuff. Right? They can look really, really complicated, but they're just a bunch of like overlapping lines, right? That make then squares and so these little lines, right? They're going to become squares, and those squares will then, yeah, turn into more complex like arrow shapes. Going to do section by section or do a pinstripe across the whole front and then switch to the arm. I'm going to do this whole area, right? And then maybe I'll draw some lines in the arm, but I don't want to sit here and just draw lines the whole time for you guys, where instead I have a reference of like what the pattern is. Yes. So I know there's an image of Houndstooth on my screen right now. And like really close up so I can like see the individual stitchings. If it were a wool cloak, well, it is wool. Don't worry. We are doing a wool jacket. It is just a different pattern of wool. Okay, so now we have, right? Now we have those lines. Diego, thank you. If you're asking like if I wanted to do plain wool, just like of one color, right? Then yeah, I would probably just stipple. So you can see now like I'm running out of space at the bottom, but that's normal because the coat, right? If I used the sleeve as a reference point, then it wouldn't line up, which the center of his chest is not really seen, but then he wouldn't have like vertical lines on his stomach and stuff. So the shoulders are wider than the stomach portion. Okay, so because of that, I want to make we're gonna like it's gonna start to like connect into the shoulder here. So you can see like 1, 2, 3. I've already done basically the same amount of lines, close to it. 3 and 3. Well, that one here is 3 and 4. You can see how I'm about 60% of the size, I think, on the back, which is what I was aiming for. So this will be my thickness that I'm going for. Chaos Kitsune. Thanks for following. And you don't need the lines to be like, I'll probably clean them, some of them up in here just to get the like line thickness more accurate. But don't worry about them being like perfectly straight, right? They don't need to, because the fabric like moves, you know, it bends and curves to the body, like some wiggliness to the lines, right? As long as those wiggles are together, right? You keep that distance between each line the same. Some wiggliness to the line is fine because the actual fabric like stretches and conforms to the body, right? So it has folds and things in it, so it doesn't necessarily need to be perfectly straight. Now, when we get to a part like this, when it hits the seam, we want it to like curve into the seam a little bit, right? So it starts to hit that seam and then it like tucks in. So it's going to like tuck in under the seam. So something like that. You can see Almondale, hello. So you can see that this line here is not quite as thick as the other one, so I left just a little bit of space on the brown one so I can get that line thickness correct. There's definitely also no one-upsmanship going on right now at all. Don't even think about it. Next time I paint a new model, I will still watch your tutorial. Thanks, Mark. No, I watch whatever Mark does, and then I have to do something harder. See, Mark has to push me to be better. That's the way it really works. I have to see whatever Mark does and go, all right, how can I make it even harder on myself? That's the curse of being first. If Mark wanted a copy of The Space Wolf Busted Me, I would give it to him. I think Mark's maybe the only person I would give a copy of. All right, so almost done. Got like one more brown line to paint in there. And then we can clean up some of the vertical lines. There's definitely been some box arts that I've done that I see like Dave Caldwell or someone paint and I go like, oh, he did that better than me. D. Collins? That's what I'm going to go with. Since you're... Oh. A question from Mark. Oh. Speaking of... Look, I'm going to do some promotion. This is not paid promotion, YouTube, so don't try and get me. But if you want to get your copy of Mark's bust, you can support him over there. You also get his fantastic version of the tutorial, so you can see how he painted the amazing herringbone pattern. And if you're like, oh, because I didn't show how I painted the hair, if you're like, oh, I need to see how I paint the hair on this model, well, I guess you'll just have to go watch Mark's version to see how the hair was painted. All right, so we've got like the vertical stripes in, right? Looks sort of like pinstriping right now. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go across this time. I am painting Houndstooth, yeah. So now we want to make sure, see again, this is going to like cross into the shoulder. So, and it's not going to line up at the top, right? Because this wouldn't line up directly. So we're going to start here as our landmark. And we're going to paint 90 degrees perpendicular to the initial lines, trying to be the same thickness. Okay. So we want our squares to be the same. So 1, right? I don't know what seersucker is. What's that? Yeah, here on the back, you can see sort of where I did some tests. So this is essentially how you would do like a really tight grain tartan. All right. So I start with the left side of the line, right? So that I get my squares are the right size. See? And then I widen that line till it gets to be the same thickness as my squares. Okay. So I just gradually increase the width of the line until it's the correct thickness. And then I do the same thing over here, but I start on the right side. Start thin, right? In case I get a little too close or a little too far in one spot, I can adjust the width of the line based off of like how close I'm getting or how far. Because like I said, I'm not going to necessarily paint like a perfect straight line, especially on when some of the fabric starts to curve and bend, right? But if I can get it like close, then when you look at it like this, right, it looks straight enough. Oop, that's the wrong color. Need to go back. Yeah, the only complicated thing about doing this part is just knowing, and this is why you want to look at reference, knowing which direction the pattern runs in. Because like on the lapel, it's going to change, right? So on the lapel, right, I'll just draw a line. So I know my reference point is now this fold, right? So it needs to run in the same direction as that fold, not necessarily. I'm going to stop at the shadow because the shadow will switch colors, right? So on the lapel, it needs to run that direction, and then the lines will run this way. So in some parts I might get a little thick, like here. That's okay. When I go to start doing like all the dots and stuff, I can clean those up. Butterscotch? Is that what this color is called? There's one more little thing that I plan to add to the model that I have not done yet. I guess I can tell you guys, but what I want to do is I want to add, like, I've got these little hole puncher things that make leaves. I think I want to do some, like, glue like a little fallen leaf to him, maybe one or two of them, like one on his shoulder or something, like the leaves are dropping in the scene, and then I'll paint a little cast shadow through the leaf. Mark said paint him like he's in autumn, so that's what I'm doing. Hello. Hi, Dracoya Minis. Thank you. And Dave Inferno, how are you doing? All right, so more lines. Okay, back to our other color. Try and keep the brush a little more vertical, especially around these parts where you get more like bumps and things. It's going to keep the line more clean, because what happens is if you paint like, how do I represent this? So say you have, say you're painting, come on. Say you have a shape like this. If you drag the brush like this, what's going to happen, right? You go to paint inside of this, and the brush is going to hit like here and make a thick line, and here's going to make a thin line. So while you're trying to paint a thin line in this recess, the side of the brush hits on this raised surface. So you end up with this super thin line at the bottom, and then there's a really thick line at the top, right? So you want the brush, come on. You want the brush to paint more like this, right? So that as you're painting the line, you don't have to worry about the side of the brush hitting in those raised surfaces. I'm not using a new brush right now. This is just a round to because I like rounds for painting lines. But I will switch to the another brush when it is time. Right. Let me get on camera. what material am I going to cut the leaves out of? You can use like paper and then just like paint them, or you can, I've used dead leaves before, but you have to, like really soak them in like matte varnish or something. So they need to be dry, and then you have to, like get them basically hard, completely hardened so that they don't like rot and crumble and everything. So you can use actual leaves, but you need to make sure that they're basically preserved. What about birch? No, that's too small. I want them to look like, birch seeds don't look like oak leaves. I want them to actually, and they're too small for the scale that I'm going for. Like I'm going for like a big oak leaf. Just out of curiosity, did I finish the goblin passing? No. They were abandoned for the time being. Just a full leaf. Just a one giant leaf over his head. It's perspective, guys. You got to realize it's actually like you know, he's smaller than an actual oak leaf. You just don't get it. It's a perspective trick. You put a really big leaf in front of him, and then you paint a little cast shadow on him, and then it looks like it's really far in front of him. So this is why we painted this line here for the stitching in his shoulder, because look what would have happened if we had left it like to just go around. It like wouldn't make sense as this wraps around over his shoulder. It might actually be slightly too far forward. I don't think so though. Maybe it needs to come this way a little bit more. Maybe it should be slightly more like that. Does that look more accurate? He does have his shoulders slightly back. I don't know, I can't quite. Maybe somewhere in the middle. Maybe it's something like that. Let's just fix this real quick. So there, I want the stitch to be there. And now when you look at him like this, yeah, it's like on top of his shoulder. Who's that? Marcus Lupus. Hello. And easy enough to just come back and extend these lines up to that line. Hi from Barcelona. Hello. Bon dia, I guess, but I guess that's not accurate. How do you say buenas tardes in Catalan? Bona nit. Ooh, lines, huh? I'm not gonna worry too much about the ones like all the way down here right now. I'll do those when I can really like manipulate the model not on camera. Same with the reason I'm not doing these ones right now, because you guys trying to see me like paint in those areas would be not very fun. It's bad enough the color's blocking parts of what I'm painting already. I wish that I returned to March school so you can go to my masterclass. Maybe. It'll happen again. All right. Mark told me I wasn't invited back. He said, you're never coming back to this city ever again. We don't like your kind around here. That's not true. They were very nice. Okay, so that's the initial layout, right? We're doing the Houndstooth, and then we've got to jump to doing dots. But can't believe that already took an hour. So yeah, I guess I had to explain it and stuff. Let me take a quick break, and then we will start doing the actual dots. All right. Okay, be right back. Hello, I'm back. All right, you guys know what it's time for. Sorry, the last seeker, I will not be answering that question on stream because it is very dependent. Okay, so now what we have to do is paint so many dots. We're going to paint a lot of dots. All right, but let's break down how the dots work. Okay, thought to ask because I was looking for people in my area and wanted to know a ballpark idea. That is so dependent on like who you're asking and all right, so let's break this down, right? Let's get it zoomed in. So what do we have? Okay, on the, I'm gonna move this closer to me so I can see better. All right, so we've got horizontal rows. This is the Clue by Maskelyne's Miniatures, and we have vertical columns. All right, so on the horizontal rows, right, we want to put one dot in the lower right hand corner and 4 dots in the diagonal on the upper half, right, going bottom left to top right. Okay, so dot, 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 dot. Then the vertical columns, right, is the opposite, is different. So at the intersections, we have 2 dots, 1, 2, it's kind of like 3. It's like, think of it in like pixels, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels. And then the 5th one goes in the bottom right corner. And then on these rows at the intersections, we have 1, 2, 3 dots, and then 4, 5 dots, right? So they both have 5, right? And this is how the stitching is done. So we will start, I think it's easier to start with the horizontals. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the white and we're basically going to start painting the negative of the shape, right? So the horizontals. So we're just going to pick one to start with, right? So anywhere where it's next to white, okay. Let's get this nice and fluid so we can paint nice opaque dots, but it flows off the brush nice. Okay, so let's just start with this one. Make sure I need to get really comfortable to do this and be on camera. All right, so we're going to start right here. Okay, so one dot. No, still didn't get the quite right consistency. Make sure our consistency is right. Dot. Yeah, all right. It's too fluid at the moment. We're going to let that dry and then we'll fix it. What's happening is our dots are too big. I should have tested on my finger first. And let's try again. All right, 1 dot. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. One dot. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we get a dot and a diagonal. All right, something like that. Hello, Danny M4E. Right, and we just have to do this hundreds of times. I'm going to do like 2 rows, and then I'll show you what else is happening. Oh yeah, I've done it now. Right, so something along those lines. Now, I'm going to make sure the top doesn't, I need to make sure it connects with the white square above it. Okay, so I need to make sure that corner is nice and filled in. Okay. All right, now I have to do the opposite. Okay. So on the horizontal rows, what did we say? We said there's a double dot and then up, up, up. Up, 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 right? So you can see that the houndstooth, right? You can see here this little, they start to turn like diagonal, right? You start to see this little shape appear. This is like the sort of classic houndstooth shape, right? The white squares start to show up. Let's keep going a little bit. Who's that? Elros? Hello? Dot, dot, dot. Dot, 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 dot. Dot, dot, dot. I suggest a good audiobook or something to keep your mind at ease, well, as to not go insane doing this. But to be honest, like, it starts to go pretty fast and once you get into a rhythm, and you can cover a pretty large area. Just make sure you keep track of whether you're doing one of the horizontal lines or one of the vertical lines. Okay, so you can start to see this pattern kind of come together. Now, there's another one, okay? So what I need to make sure, because some of this didn't cover great, right? I'm going to make sure that this part, these overlapping lines here, where I have this lighter color, I want to make sure these squares are nice and solid. In fact, I'm just going to go over these a little bit to make sure they're nice and solid over the dark brown. So we're going to have areas where instead of the white and brown lines crossing, that we get invert. So like you get these intersecting patterns, right? So like here and here. Okay, so I'm going to get a bunch where I have the tan going over top of the brown, right? This square, for example, this square. Right, so these are half brown. You have full brown squares, right? So this square is a full brown square because it's the intersection of two brown lines. You have full tan squares like these. These are full tan. Then you have these ones. Okay, this one here, this one here, this one here. These are half and half squares. Okay. So on the half and half squares, we're going to do the same thing, but the half and half squares, right? If we come back to this side and look, come on, zoom, focus for me. There we go. You can see we get little patterns like this, right? So again, these run horizontal. They do the same thing that the other one did, right? Just keeping track of the what kind of square you're painting. So on this one, right? What we want is we want the top. So we get a little tan hex thing in that. So you get these little half and half squares. Where they overlap. Okay, so we're just looking for anywhere where they overlap. It starts to create that additional pattern. I will probably bring this to the judges' display at Novaya. But you can see, like here, it looks really noisy. But when we zoom out, right, there's not too much of a difference in what's going on, like zoomed out, of just like the plaid. Right? You kind of start to lose the picture of what those squares are doing, and it starts to become just generally like lighter looking. One, because we've got way more like white, those white crosses going through everything. So it sort of lightens up the fabric in general. But then when you get to here, right, now you can really start to sort of see that pattern come together. Okay. I think it might actually be easier to do the half and halves as brown instead. Just because it's a little easier to do these dark lines over top of the light lines. And then dots, we can get the dots a little more solid, right? But I think it's a good idea to stick to one or the other, okay? So that you don't get your pattern confused. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back on all the dark lines and just draw those dark lines overlapping the tan lines so that we have a consistent pattern, right? All the tan ones will be underneath. I know this can probably seem a bit overwhelming. Also, I'm not necessarily recommending everyone do this. Okay? There is a thing in miniature painting that I would refer to as like diminishing returns. Okay? So while this can be cool and like an interesting exercise to do, of covering this whole jacket in this pattern and then also making it work with like the light and shadow. It also might not necessarily be the most time efficient thing to do. Hi, Joe. Hi, Ghoul. So anyways, it's definitely one of those like how crazy are you? This is one of those moments where I go, I'm going to do this just because I think I can. I just want to see if I can. What's that line? They were so busy asking whether or not they could, they didn't stop to ask if they should. Is that where you are having the most fun these days? Technical painting? I don't know, Gary. I'm just trying things, you know? It's one of those things you can ask yourself, like, if you want to push yourself, I go, hey, I should try this. Macrobio. Thanks for the follow. Welcome. Would I ever do this on a figure again? No, probably not. I think I'm doing it just because I think it fits this character, right? And it's a fun experiment. Would Albert blackline all the stitches? No, I don't think so. I'm not going to paint a Tyranid kill team in plaid. I will paint a Tyranid kill team though. You guys see those new Raveners? Like some bugs. I think this is another thing that's like, you just get locked in. You're like, oh yeah, time to paint some dots, boy. How do you shadow and highlight the pattern? That's a good question. So in areas like this, because I have a clearly defined light, I will actually paint the pattern like this with darker colors in these areas. So where it changes, I'll just switch to the darker color. Where it's like this, I will have like maybe 2 steps, right? And then I can do some glazing to kind of, I can do some glazing in order to introduce some light and shadow where I need it. Okay. Hi, Jonas. Hi, Wendy. Highlighting, I don't have to worry about too much, honestly, because the fabric itself is quite rough, so it would have extremely diffused highlights. But if I want to, at the end, come back and highlight certain sections, I can come back with an ivory and make some of the like white squares and dots a bit lighter. But yeah, highlighting is not going to be as important as shadowing here. All right, so you can see I'm doing all the horizontal columns or horizontal rows first, so that I'm in the same pattern of doing, like, I do the bottom left, I do the diagonal, I do the, or not bottom left, bottom right, I do the diagonal, bottom right of the square, do the diagonal, right? So this like keeps me on track of just repeating the same shape, right? Bottom right, do the diagonal. And if I stay on track this way, then I switch to doing the other one, right? Easier, easier that way. And if I'll come back, and if some of them get a little wonky, that's okay. I can come back with the like the tan and clean them up, right? If some of them get too thick or whatever, it's not the end of the world. I would suggest, if you want to try this pattern, try on bigger squares than what I'm doing. Right? Like do an enlarged version of it. Even the one I did on the back was like significantly larger than what I'm doing here. I don't know if it's a great way of practicing brush skills so much as just a great way of practicing patience. like here, if I see anywhere where my squares are a little wonky, I can kind of fix those before doing dots. Like here, I've got like a white dot for no reason. Don't even know where that came from. But yeah, so you can already see it kind of coming together, right? Just how much the noise of the pattern starts to sort of blend into each other as the further away you get. You still pick up the like stripes and stuff, but then you zoom, you actually see the pattern, right? How many hours do I think to do all of it? I've been doing this one for almost 2 for just this one patch. So total, not talking on camera, will probably speed it up. But let's say this is like just one little part. 10 hours to do the whole jacket, maybe? 16? I don't know. Hard to estimate. I think the correct answer there is not an actual number. And it's as long as it takes. That's the real answer. As long as it takes to finish. I don't think I ever showed him on stream. Maybe you guys, we started him on stream, the sniper, right? Here's another fun one to do. That little digital camo on his cape, his camo cloak. There can be something therapeutic about doing this. Also, I find it kind of funny to see 100 people watching me just paint squares and lines. Squares and dots. I don't know who's crazier, me or you guys. Yeah, just break out some other random shape. We gotta hide some things in this pattern. What's crazy though is like, this is for real though. If you like screw up the pattern, we are so accustomed to recognizing patterns that if I like made something wonky with the pattern somewhere, you guys would pick up on it like instantly. Your brain would be like, what the heck did he do there? I can't believe he messed up that one line. To be honest, it's actually pretty visible, like even from a reasonable distance without my glasses on. Like it's your eyes can pick up on like the little diagonal elements, right? So it's like you can see the beyond the like horizontal and vertical directionality of it. You do start to pick up this like upwards to the right sort of direction to the pattern. All the little Space Invader men's like running this way. That's what they always reminded me of. Oh no. No. T-Baggins, this is the wrong stream for that. We believe in screw ups here. We just fix them. People are fallible. You make mistakes. Learning from your mistakes is what's important. Yeah. The whole back is gonna get redone. It was like I did this in like an hour last night to like test sort of how I wanted to approach painting them. Like if I wanted to do just lines or like it's basically how I went about like what process or order in which I painted the pattern. So I tried like a couple different order of operations, and you can see that the pattern sort of appears in each one, but towards the bottom, which is the order I'm doing them now, I think looks most accurate to the pattern. Richard, you pull yourself up by the bootstraps. That's what you do. You just got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you know? Trick is actually ratchet straps. It's way more efficient. One click at a time. All right, so there's still some squares to do. One thing here is to like connect these, make sure that like the lines actually connect into the square above, that I don't have like a dark little patch separating them. So I can come back sort of to each square and just kind of gently touch the top right of each square just to make sure that it really looks like it's joining in the square above. The deep breath. All right, we're 2 hours and we're almost not not done with the this one patch, right? So, yep. I have still some more to like reach down here. I'll do those separate because they're the more annoying to reach ones, but let's jump to the other way. So now we have to go this way, and now we're going to go down the row like this. So now we're going to go down these ways. No. Not Bob Ross levels. I'm all about positive mind setting, but I'm also all about like the reason we're doing this texture is because we're pushing ourselves. And there's no other reason beyond just testing the limits of my technical skill and patience. How are you, 2A, by the way? Yeah, really just trying to flex on Mark a little bit, you know. That's the actual answer. I'm just trying to show off. Well, I guess once in a while I can give one little piece of wisdom. Wait, what? Is that actually a thing? What do you mean, Sebastian, that like the hand thinks I'm activating emotes? Turn him upside down like this? How do you mean thumbs down emojis? Where does it show the emoji? I don't get it. Really? If I go like this, does it do it? Make a heart symbol with my hand. Now you guys got me. Are you guys messing with me? If I go like this, does it do stuff on the screen? Oh, what the heck? The YouTube audience also won't see this because it's recording on a separate device. So what if I do this? Does it do anything? Oh, weird. Sorry, YouTube audience, you don't get to see if I go like this, does it do something? This doesn't understand. Oh my god, it made a rain cloud. I had no idea that it did this. Thanks, Wendy. So you guys are telling me this whole time his hand has been like causing little random emojis to pop up? That's funny, dude. We should be, if any emoji should be pop up, it should be the thinking emoji, right? It should be this one. If it comes up, yeah, somebody clip the miniature doing it. That way I can make it a YouTube short. Where the heck was I? That's right, we were painting dots. I'm gonna leave that on for now because that's funny. Oh, it thinks the nose is the thumb like this. So if I go like this, it's probably gonna be like, that's a thumbs up. Well, I'm glad. Is that specifically a Mac thing? Like the webcam, Mac webcam thing? I will probably turn it off because it's sort of distracting and annoying. Oh, okay, here we go. Reactions off. Done. Thank you, Typhoon. Sorry, I'll paint the hand worse next time. You know, I was laughing because I got a little feedback on the hand. I was like, well, I paint way more faces than hands. You would think, with the number of figures that you paint, that there's 2 hands for every 1 face. Yeah, sometimes more. But almost every damn figure I paint is wearing like gloves or armored gauntlets or something along those lines. So I end up painting way less hands than actual faces. Most of like Space Marines, you're not really painting hands, you're painting like segmented fingers, right? Any sort of gauntlet, you're painting like non-metallic, you're not really painting hands. So yeah, you paint a lot less hands doing fantasy painting than you end up painting faces. So not as experienced painting hands as I am, you might think. Yeah, they are quite difficult to paint, actually. Someone should make, you paint even less of, because, busts sometimes have hands, but they never have feet. So you almost never paint feet because they, figures are always wearing shoes and stuff. Someone should sculpt the foot so that you can just, practice painting a foot. Oh, Dave, you made a foot? Albex, or... All right, I'm going to take another quick break in order to stretch for a minute and rest my eyes, and then I'll continue painting dots and lines. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like you can see now where like the pattern is incomplete, right? Like up in here versus in here where like the pattern is starting to come together, right? And then when you zoom out, even the difference between like this and this, like this looks too, it looks like too mechanical, right? It doesn't really look like fabric where this starts to like blend together, right? Because you have more noise in here. It starts to read more like a fabric, right? At least in my opinion. All right. Whew. Time for more. Time for more tooths. How are we doing on dots, huh? Okay. So now we're ready for the crossovers, right? So now anywhere where we have the tan line, we have to make a crossover on these squares. What is that? Brutal Burrito. Thanks for the Prime. Yeah, you can, if you don't like ads, you can use your Prime sub that you're just giving Jeff Bezos money anyways to not watch ads. How about that? Isn't that fun? And then you get access to the Feedback Friday channel. There's so many reasons. Oh, thanks, Dan. Every Twitch Prime you give me is $1 or something you take out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and put it in mine. Hi, Nate. How long do you think you'd stick with it? I'd give you 2 hours. Is that being generous? That one was bad. I like paisley. I've painted paisley before. I think paisley's not that hard actually, because you can really like. It's more about getting in like the big shapes. So if you can like kind of establish the big shapes to the paisley, then you can really like sort of just knock in the rest of it. Um, you get like the big patterns. And then, yeah, you just, once you've got the big patterns in, then you can paint like little dots and filler stuff on paisley. So it's not, because paisley is so like random looking, it's a lot easier to like fudge, you know? What did I do on the scar bust? Did I paint a pattern on that? I don't even remember. Was that Paisley? It may have been. I know I've done it on like bandanas and stuff before. Excuse me. When painted this pattern in the cast shadows of the hand, will you mix with your current colors with black or with like a Payne's gray? So I have, this will be what is now the tan, right? And then I have a dark like yellow to use, this like dark yellow brown to use. And then I use black for the dark brown. And then I just have to make the transition work. So that's how I would approach it. Brewing, hello. Hi. Blue Ink Studio, hello. It's easy to get lost in the your notification knocked me out of my trance. Dot, line. Well, what do you guys think so far, huh? Does it look appropriately patterned? Like, is it working? Are you fooled? Oh, dude, you missed Mark earlier. He said he's just going to send me his model first next time. So whatever his next release is, I'll do it first so that he can watch my video on it and then paint his box art. We were joking. And I think it's true, actually. It's easier to be the second person to paint a figure. I've got some lines that I don't think are quite as clean as I would like. Like some of these I need to probably come back and like make sure they're more clear. Because you want to make sure you get that shape. Okay? I'm going to draw it. So the pattern that arrives, right, once you've, come on, focus for me. Zoom out a little bit. Come on. The pattern that arrives is a shape like this. So it's like, oh, it's these like two downward lines and then a square. Right, something like this shape with these like little things that come out of the top. So you get this like shape, right? And then that tessellates. Yeah, dude, you get a little it's all these little Batmans. At what point did you start counting yourself in a master's category at a painting comp? Me, personally? I only ever entered masters. But read 2A's answer. You should enter where you feel comfortable, and I think the best answer I can give for should I enter masters is you'll know. You'll know when you should enter masters. All right, so you can start to see some of the Batman shape I was talking about. So what I'm doing here, what I'm doing is I'm just going to start to come back and clean up some of these shapes, right, where some of the lines maybe are a little thick or something, just to reestablish some of these shapes better. I'll be at MFCA. I think the best answer I can give to like when I went to Monty for the first time, I mean, I'm not the best example, to be honest. Like, this is me just stating facts, not trying to gloat. Like, I got gold at my first Monty in Masters. I had been practicing for a long time. I'd never entered. I was like new to the competition painting circuit, I guess you could say. But I had been painting for like years and decided to like really push myself to a display level. So like I had quite a lot of experience, and I had entered some smaller contests, right? But like I had entered Crystal Rush and made it to the like online port, like the first cut and stuff. So I'd also won some other like awards like P3 Grandmaster and things. So I think it's, yeah, you should judge your preparedness. Like you should be able to basically know, like, am I in the same caliber as these others, you know? Christoph told me once it depends what you were looking for. If you want golds and medals and accolades, start at the lower tiers. And if you want, you will be more likely to be awarded and work your way up. If you want to show your work and compare yourself to the masters and get feedback from masters where you want to be, then enter masters. Yeah, that's fair. I basically went going like, these are the guys that I want to throw down with, right? Let's see how I stack up. I also felt that I had a little something to prove. I got to deal with hearing how much better the European painters were than American painters. Yeah. I'll tease him for it forever. When Alfonso first looked at my work, his first response was, "That's pretty good for an American." And then I had a Michael Jordan moment and I took that personally. His wife did indeed scold him for that. Hey, you know, worked out for me, I guess. Maybe he knew exactly what to say. Poke Me Amber, hello. Are you in Hawaii now, Jonas? One of us. One of us. We're taking him. He's one of ours now. Who are other American greats, by the way? Bill Horan. Shepard Payne. Like, if you talk going back, like, that's who the Europeans were looking at, right? In the historical painting community. Marika Reimer, Jen Haley, Ben Comets. I'm taking him. He's got an American he's got an American citizenship. He doesn't talk about it. In fantasy, yeah, it goes before. Who's that? Poke Me Amber, thanks for following. Yeah. Anyways. I've talked about this topic before, but there was obviously a big gap, and I think most of it's caused by us not having the Golden Demon in the US for so long. that the fantasy side of miniature painting definitely developed more in the US. Or the fantasy side of miniature painting got pushed more in Europe because of the Golden Demon. And I think the introduction of the crystal brush in the US really like brought it back. Oh, hola, Ivan. We've had quite the guest tonight. Whew, yeah, whew, okay. I'm starting to feel pretty good about this. I need to do some more work in here. I don't know, you guys tell me, do you think there was a catalyst in the US that really like, obviously painting competitions have been growing a lot and stuff here in the US. I think the reintroduction of the Golden Demon has helped too, but it's interesting that there's like kind of two different they're sort of two separate communities almost. I think COVID had some effect. Like it had started before that, but I think COVID probably helped it, like the boom, you know. Two separate communities, I mean like the Golden Demon and what I would call like large scale display painting community don't necessarily overlap, right? I think you have a little bit of separation there. Not entirely, but there's definitely like a group that's like really into Golden Demon, and then there's a group that are more into stuff like Bus and things like that. All right. So here's what I want to do real quick. So I'm going to take just a little bit of the blood. I'm actually going to grab, if you remember, we have our transparent raw lumber that we were using on the face. Well, it's useful because it's transparent. So what we're gonna do, so like, obviously I can't do like all the way down here, but I'll show you a little bit on the sleeve. So I'm gonna create a glaze out of this guy, right? It's like a black brown, doesn't have a lot of color. And we can slowly build this layer up, right? It's not going to affect so much underneath it that like it's going to be super obvious, but we can make little adjustments to the value, right? So if I want to like shade a fold or something, I can just create a little shadow there through glazing. Bye, Ivan. Yeah, we are quite spread out. But that's changing a bit too with things like varicose vault and like some of the like Texas-based painters Discord and things. You're seeing more of these like local-ish painting communities. I know there's like a West Coast California-based painting group. One of the other things like that's so much different in the US than Europe is like population density is way different here than in Europe. Like if you look at France, like everyone lives in like the major cities. It's like more than half the population lives in the major cities or something like that. Where here we actually do tend to have more suburbs and people living like outside of like major city centers. Like I couldn't tell you, even though New York City is like a massive population, I can't tell you that many miniature painters from like the actual city. I'm sure there are a couple. Yeah, I mean, you have guys like, let's say, Andy Wardle, right? Andy is like very involved in both. And like, even within your own country, right? Like Nicholas in Copenhagen, right? But Nicholas is like way more involved in Golden Demon than he is in like alternate scale like stuff. I know Jersey has like quite a few painters, yeah. I think I know more people from Jersey than I do from like New York City proper. What do you think about Arch Villain Games? I know nothing about Arch Villain Games, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're painting some Houndstooth, and it's reaching a point now where I'm like, I don't know how much more I can show you guys other than just like keep repeating the same thing over and over again and trying to like clean it up, right? But it should give you a general idea of like kind of where the pattern is going. So then I just do this over everything. You would mention Chistoff as both? I wouldn't consider Chistoff a Golden Demon guy. How much time did I spend on this one little section? 3 hours, because that's what we're at. Technically 2 hours and 45 minutes with some time for goofing off. So yeah, doing the rest of it is going to take quite a bit of time. No, that does not include the part in the back. I did this last night while just like testing how I wanted to do the pattern. So, all right. So for the asking about the arm, right? I'll quickly explain sort of how I would approach the arm. First, I'm going to clean up any mess that I made. So how I would start the arm is I would start from the shoulder. Okay. So I would start at like the center of the shoulder. I'll just draw a line real quick. So sort of the same idea. Let's take a reference point here. Now we know the shoulder curves and pulls a little bit, all right? So let's say we start right here. Yeah, then I'm gonna follow it down the arm. And it's gonna like bump and move in these folds. But I'm on the outside of the shoulder here. So if you imagine his arm like down to the side, okay? I'm gonna stand up. I don't have any stripes on me. But let's imagine my sleeve, right? This line right here. Where does this connect? Okay? So this seam, right, goes to the bottom, okay? So when I turn my arm, it's on the bottom, slightly on the inside, right? So it's in here. So this, right? So this part of the sleeve, oh, let me go back to the camera where you can see. Okay. This part of the sleeve right here. Okay, let's draw this. There would be some sort of stitch that goes like this, right? And this is going to come up and around and actually like go underneath, okay? So it might actually turn in more than that. It might be like somewhere more in here. So this might be closer to, because you have to imagine when the arm is cut, right? This arm is cut, the bottom of the cuff, right? I could spin my arm, but that bottom of that cuff, right? As I rotate my arm, the sleeve does twist a little. So it's maybe now like here. And that might go up underneath. So it would like wrap around up like this. I'm just kind of painting to show for an example. So this part of the arm, right, needs to loop around this way more. Well, the only thing I would consider doing on him is like, if I want, I could theoretically like do like the patched elbows thing, but no, I'll probably just do the whole arm. Right, so this comes down, and as it starts to like get involved in all of these wrinkles and things, now, I don't think it matters that much, but it needs to start to like twist into more of this upper part of the arm. Right, maybe something like here. Okay. Which means this one's going to have to come out, around, and outside. And then all of this gets bunched together. So what I would start is I would actually start the pattern. I would start the pattern on the outside, work my way inside, and then as it gets into all these wrinkles and folds, it just starts to become a mess. And you make it work in the smooth areas, and then you just kind of, or you make it accurate in the smoother, like the areas that are like have tension to them and are flat. And then you just kind of fill in the information. You wing it in the areas of like the really thick folds. Right, this one you can see the twist, right? Like look at this arm. See how the shoulder here, right? Let's draw a line. So if we start here, right, and start to draw a line, you can see the twisting of the sleeve. Okay? So that means this line right here might need to connect right here. All right? And the only way that's going to happen is as you come out and around the sleeve, that this is going to have to start to come down and around. Something like that. That is accurate. It does not need to be right as long as it looks right. But yeah, that's how I would approach it. Yeah, and then you just fill in the space. Cool. Makes sense. I have to do all these, and then I'll just paint everything. So as long as you get that sort of main line in, that first line, right, it's going to make everything else a lot easier as you continue with the pattern. And then what I would do is as long as then I know I just have to be like always perpendicular to that line, right? So it's like, it starts going this way, and then as it starts to come down here. And luckily he's got his arms tucked in and he's not like T-posing. So we don't have to worry about this stitch where the two like pieces of fabric come together like we do on the shoulder, right? We can hide that seam in the like part that's touching his body. Cool. All right, guys. I think that'll do it for today. I need a break from painting these things. Let's see who we can raid.